Salma.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Lisa. Nice to meet you. And Tommy, nice to meet you.
Team Foxtrot, you will have 20 minutes to present your solution to judges. You'll be given a warning with 5 and 2 minutes remaining. After 20 minutes, the presentation will stop immediately. No information will be considered after 20 minutes has lapsed. And following your presentation, there will be a 10-minute question and answer. You'll be given a warning with 2 minutes remaining. The question and answer will be stopped after 10 minutes. And you may begin with it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed Hassan.
I'm Laura Yun.
I'm Tommy Wong. And Osama.
And we're Team Foxtrot. We're going to present to you the case with our client, Nidec Motor Corporations. Nidec's main concern is to launch their new product into the market, their new product Foresight. And they have 2 main challenges. The first challenge is that they want to do this in a way that they're not in a direct competition with their customers, their OEMs and their MROs. And at the same time, they want to make sure that introducing this product they will be in compliance with all of the global regulations surrounding data and privacy and security. Nidec's vision, they want to be an early adopter of disruptive technologies and innovative technologies. They want to make sure that they adopt these technologies at an early time, and they see this as an important and an emerging trend in the market, and they know that this is the future. So they want to be an early adopter. This will allow them to gain a competitive advantage above their competitors, and it's going to make them increase their market share and become a global leader, especially in the maintenance and repairs industry. And which is the second component, being a global leader in the market. And their third component of the vision is transforming their maintenance solutions from a reactive solution, monitoring solution to a predictive maintenance. This means that they don't want to find out what's wrong about the machine and react to it after it occurs, but predict it in advance and see and foresee. They want to have the ability to foresee what's wrong with the machine, what's wrong with the motor, and communicate that message to the customer at an early stage in the lifetime of the product. And so this industrial Internet of Things, this interconnectivity of devices and the ability for a wireless sensor to send data to a cloud, this is one of the emerging technologies. This is one of the technologies that they want to be embedding in their operations. And it has a lot of benefits. The first benefit is that it comes with a lot of economies of scale. Nidec will be able to significantly reduce their labor costs. This is because now the workers are being replaced by wireless sensors, and this will allow them to save a lot of costs on labor and also a lot of time, which takes us to the second point, which is operational efficiency. It's going to allow Nidec to change the way they find out about the problems of their machines and motors, and it will allow the workers to have more time to work on higher responsibility tasks and let the wireless sensors take care of the data collection. So now the workers are not only collecting data, but they are doing more meaningful tasks, which are what does this data mean and how do we work with it, what do we do with it. And the third point is the increase in this worker utility. It's an overall increase in the productivity of the operations of Nidec. This comes with a lot of costs, and Nidec has to make sure to take all of these costs into consideration when implementing this Internet of Things. And the first cost is the loss of human element. As I mentioned, these wireless sensors are going to be replacing a lot of jobs. So Nidec, implementing these technologies, must take into account must address the issue in a way that will not make these workers lose a lot of their jobs. So they should put it in a way that makes sure that these workers still have their jobs secured, even though the wireless sensors are taking part of the job. So now the workers are moving on to the what do we do with this data and the analysis of this data more than the data collection. And the second cost is this loss of privacy and security. This is a potential threat to any company that's implementing such technologies, because now these wireless sensors are embedded in every motor, which means that Nidec and other companies are at a potential threat to be at a breach with regulations surrounding data and privacy. So they must take that into account too. And the third component is the complexity of use. Implementing this technology will need a retraining of the workforce. They need to be retrained in a new set of skills and knowledge that comes with this technology. So that's another component that they should take into consideration.
All right, so we've talked a lot about this new disruptive technology, so let's actually look at it. So the new technology that Nidec wants to introduce is Foresight, which is a wireless motor monitoring sensor. So it's a sensor that gets attached to any motor, so anything that spins, and it tracks the data collected. So it tracks the heat and temperature and any anomalies that happen in the motor and sends it to a cloud-based data source. So it allows, so you can see that this allows the user a lot of ability in that they can track the information of their motor without going to a repair person. So let's say I own a car and I have an engine in my car, or I have a motor in my car. Rather than going once a month, I have no car, so rather than going once a month to the repair person, rather I can now look at an online platform that shows me that my motor is in good condition and I only have to go once every 6 months. This reduces my cost by 80%. And so this creates a challenge, this creates a few challenges. Oops, sorry. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, wait, no. Okay, so right now there are a few competitors in the motor industry market. So some of the bigger ones are Emerson, Siemens, and Rockwell Automations. So we understand that they capture a large portion of the motor automation industry at this moment. However, we believe that introducing this new disruptive technology at this minute, introducing this new disruptive technology at this minute will be able to capture a large portion of these market shares because Nidec currently has the resources to do so. Some of the challenges that will be faced by introducing this new disruptive technology, as you can imagine, by the example that I gave you, is if I'm a car owner, so if I'm the end user right now at this minute and I own a motor, rather than going to a repair person, rather than going to the service industry to have them check on my motor, I can automatically go directly around the service industry and see when my motor is broken or in need of repair, and it lowers my cost by 80%, which also means that it lowers their revenue by 80%. And so we are in direct competition with our customers, which are MROs and OEMs, who are the people who are in the service industry for motor repairs, and for OEMs who are the original manufacturers of, let's say, the car that I'm ownership of. And the second is resistance to new technology. And so, as always, when you introduce new disruptive technology, there's going to be resistance faced with implementing this. And so, as I said before, our customers are OEMs and MROs. Of course, they would be opposed to introducing this new technology that basically cuts out 80% of the revenue. So this is going to be something that we address in our strategy. And our third is data security and storage, as my partner here said before. So it's very important that we're collecting all this information about the heat of the car, the temperature, maybe the location of the car and the motor, which means that we're collecting all this data, and what if the data gets breached? Or who has ownership of this data? Do I have the ownership, or does the end user have the ownership? And so it's important that we address these concerns within the strategy of Nidec.
So all of this sort of abstract thinking can get a bit tricky to keep in line, so we decided to come up with a simplified supply chain, which would essentially lay out what the hell is going on. So to the left we have Nidec at the beginning of the supply chain. Essentially they have the upper hand. The reason is they are introducing this disruptive technology which would essentially impact the rest of the supply chain. Now the supply chain, although it is simplified, is in fact quite complex. There's a lot of interplay, the relationship is quite dynamic between the two. So a buyer is also a seller is also a buyer. You can be a customer and a buyer. So that's sort of encapsulated here. Now to provide some concrete example, we used the airline industry. So we looked into Nidec's OEM, one of their customers, and they happen to be Boeing. Now, let's take an example. Nidec sells a motor to Boeing, and then Boeing installs this motor in their plane. I'm not sure where they would use it, but they would install it in the plane. And then Boeing would then sell it to an airline, for example, Air France. And now you can see how that sort of supply chain link has been created there. Now let's say Air France has an issue with one of their planes. What they would do traditionally is go back to their OEM. They would call up Boeing and tell them, listen, I have an issue with my plane. Can you guys take care of it? They would bring the plane to the hangar. They would fix it, whatever, and then send the plane back. Now, on the other end are independent MROs. So the independent MROs operate, obviously, independently of OEMs. Now, OEMs have MROs underneath them. MROs. The MROs operate within. So there are certain MROs that operate under OEMs. Now, independent MROs in this case are also partners with Nidec. So in this example, let's say that there's an MRO in Estonia. It's called magnetic MRO. They would do what Boeing would do. Let's say Turkish Airlines had an issue with one of their planes. They would go to this independent MRO, and similar sort of thing. They would get the plane fixed and then have it sent back. Now this is before the introduction of the technology. Oops. So this is before the introduction of foresight. Now what foresight causes is this new sort of circumvention of the supply chain. If this is one potential use of foresight. Let's say, again, Air France had an issue with one of their planes. Rather than go back to their OEM and then back and forth through their MROs, which would be the traditional route, they would simply circumvent the supply chain and use foresight. Foresight would essentially give them all of the details they need in order to best monitor and maintain the health of their fleet. However, this is just one potential outcome. We personally didn't like it. We felt that it would sever the ties between Nidec and their partners, OEM and MROs. Although it is a profitable way, since we are selling directly to the end users, we would be, in a sense, harming ourselves because, like I said earlier, this is a dynamic interplay where not only are we selling, we are also the customers. And so we rely on each other in that sense, and doing it this way would cause a lot of issues.
So rather than directly going to the end user and giving them this technology, we want to empower our direct customers, which are MROs and OEMs, by only offering them the platform. And so rather than, let's say Air France, let's take our airline example as an example. If let's say Air France has a plane that breaks down, they will still have to go to their Boeing, their OEMs, or Turkish Airlines would go to their subsidiary MROs and get their plane fixed. However, with this new technology, our customers, OEMs and MROs, would better predict when Air France would have a plane that breaks down. Essentially, this would actually allow them to capture more of the market because they can take on more customers because they have time and cost reduction by not having to go and maintain the plane, let's say, a regimented once every 6 months. Rather, they would know when Air France's motor is about to break down, and then they'd be able to offer more predictive, maintenance for their planes and be able to offer higher customer service. So then also another strategy is by phasing in this new technology. This acknowledges Nidec's original challenge that the market may be resistant to new market. We're going to talk about how we're going to phase in this new technology in a little bit. And the last is regulation compliance. And so we understand that it's going to be a big problem that we have all this data. We have all this data and our customers may not know and can trust Nidec to utilize this data or how they're going to, who has ownership of this data. And we're also going to address that in the strategy. So in our solutions, we're going to implement the foresight technology with the motors that we're already currently selling. So currently the motor that Nidec is selling doesn't have the technology, and the way that we're going to do it is we're going to slowly introduce motors that already have foresight technology implemented into the motor, and we want to focus on the fact that by introducing foresight as solely a software as a service platform rather than a software as a service instead of a platform as a service. We're not selling the data to anyone, so this will be a cloud data, and so no one has actual ownership unless it is us or the customer itself.
So like Lori mentioned, we wanted to actually bundle the motor and the sensor. Traditionally, the motor was sold alone, and you could opt to either buy the sensor or do without it. However, we felt that the best way to introduce this product to generally a resistant market would be to initialize this sort of phase-out period. So over the 12 months, we would recommend that Nidec continues selling the motor, but in addition to the bundle that we just spoke of in the last slide. So in this case, it would be the motor and the sensor combined. So you would have to buy it as one unit. Or a third product would be the standalone sensor for those who would like to just add the sensor to existing machines. We felt this was the best way to do it because of the aforementioned resistance. These two products, B and C, would be discounted in order to incentivize the market to begin trying out these new products. Additionally, during the 12 months, there will be, this is just our recommendation, but there would be essentially a free use of the cloud software in order to familiarize the buyers, our clients, of what's going on. That way they can get comfortable with the technology. But after the 12 months, we recommend that what was product A be discontinued, and then A and B be sold in the long term. So that was in the short term. But in the long term, in order to advance Foresight's vision and bring innovation to the market, and in order to impact the supply chain from beginning to end, and bringing that innovation from top to bottom, we recommend that A and B be sold with the sensor. That way, clients who want to be on board with this innovation, with this adaptation, are on board from the beginning. So again, just to sort of reiterate, the product, how would we position it to a resistant market, economies of scale. The product is incredibly cheap, relatively, when we're speaking within the context of the market. It's also very easy to use. It's intuitive and easy to install. So for small businesses or large businesses, it's beneficial to both. Again, an increase in worker utility. One of the major points was that the introduction of the sensor would actually reduce or perhaps cause a layoff of workers. While this could be true to some degree, it would actually cause worker tasks time to go down, which means that they are able to take on more work. So in the case of Air France, for example, let's say that Air France has a technical division which repairs the planes. Before the introduction of the technology, they could do 5 planes. With the introduction of the technology, they could do 10. So there is certainly a lot of flexibility in terms of growth. And then the third point would be product learning through data analytics. So because the user has a whole array of information, they are able to see what they're doing right in their operations, what they're doing wrong, where they can improve on their procedures. So it's a whole host of information.
The second challenge we have to address is the data ownership and security. So what exactly is the data ownership? Based on our research, we define that data owners are those who actually own the data and who can have the right to access it, to use it, or to sell it. Well, to make it more intuitive, just say I'm a customer of Apple, I have an iPhone. So whenever I take a picture for a beautiful campus, I send the picture to iCloud, to the server. I can access with any tablet or like Mac I have. But in the same time, those data are transferred back to me. But there's a common perception that Apple is the one who actually owns the data because they are providing the cloud server and they're providing the database. But actually, I'm the one who created the data, so the customers are actually the owners of the data. Well, there's a common Recently, there's an event from Facebook that they're actually selling your data to their customers through, so most exactly through Cambridge Analytica, but they're actually analyzing your trends in your political spectrum to target you during the election in 2016 presidential election. Well, for the second part, it's about security. Well, even though the company is not directly selling your data to some third-party organizations, there might be hackers trying to get access to your sensitive information, including probably your social security, or your credit card numbers, or addresses. One example for it is Equifax. They had a huge security breaching 2 years ago. So there were a lot of information, including social security, the customers were breached to a third party, to hackers. And the backlash for those companies are, the customers were really concerned about the privacy, about their security, and in the next, so that a lot of
that take time is it's out of time, and we're going to begin with the questions and answer session.
I guess my first question is you talked about the strategy you suggest is to go into adding into existing motors first, and then go standalone just to make it easier for people to adopt it. So, and then you also talked about providing the software use for about 12 months for. So, what did you guys look at any idea what the investment would be, what the ROI is for doing that?
We actually tried to look for numbers, but we couldn't find any. We would have preferred numbers, obviously, to substantiate our argument, but fortunately, we searched the web, we searched even...
But in your I guess, did you guys look at, this is not the actual numbers, but
yes.
Do you see an ROI for this, what would be an ROI, a time frame for investing? Do you have any kind of ideas on that?
Absolutely. I mean, initially we said 12 months. We felt this was a fair amount of time, not only to, so that we could profit, but also to introduce the technology in a way which was a sort of a controlled introduction to the market. If we were to introduce it directly, it would most likely be met with a lot of resistance. Also, we felt that during this 12-month period, it would be wise to discount the other two products which were facing resistance, which would be the sensor, standalone sensor, and then the combination of the sensor and the motor, in order to incentivize clients who were perhaps on the edge over to buying that. So we felt that in the short term, we perhaps incur a loss. This is business. I mean, we can't always be profitable. But in the long term, that's sort of what we were aiming for, profitable.
And we also recognize that it's going to be like an initial high investment for us and for our customers in the short term. There's going to be a lot of retraining, installation of servers, and everything that needs to be set up for this technology to work. So we recognize that in the short term it's going to be high cost, but in the long run we're going to be controlling a higher share of the market, and that with that comes a higher sales and profits.
In addition to that, I think we wanted to add that, so the product will be offered as a subscription basis. So the original introduction of the motor with the sensor will be cheaper than the original motor itself. That we will incur a cost. However, with a subscription basis, it's going to return that investment through time. And so it's going to be a time return investment.
So when you look at this case, do you see the data as the hero and the asset that needs to be coveted? So in your area of data privacy, what are you doing to ensure you still have access to it? Probably is the most valuable part of the offering.
So our job is to ensure that the data is secure within our system, because we are providing like a software as a service instead of a platform. So we are the only one who can control the data. So our job is to let the customers know that the data is fully transparent. We know what we're doing with the data and our capacity of it. So we are not actually using it to profit from like third-party organizations or other like people. But so additionally, we are trying to use our investments. So those new revenue streams we are generated from our new software. We're going to use that to create a separate department, just specifically addressing the security issues. So we have like a DPO, which are the data protecting officers. We also have specific people who are specialists in like targeting cybersecurity. So we have a lot of like hackers in the world. We have like Edward Snowden, where those people out there. So we have to protect our data, to protect our location specifically, because those are important to their privacy. So let's say I'm a car owner, so they can track my location every time I want. I don't want this location to be revealed to other people. So as for Nidec, it's really important and tremendously important for them to protect the locations, protect the data for our customers, and we have to ensure the security for our customers.
Just to add on to that, like, Nidec should recognize this at an early point, that this is a new trend, and that's why they should employ certain employees that are specialized in ensuring that the company is in compliance with all of the regulations that are changing and are variable in every region. And that's going to be a huge cost in the beginning, but this will help them avoid any large costs in the future, which could be in data breach, such as the current lawsuits we saw with Facebook and other companies.
Would you explain in a little more detail why your OEM customers are going to go along with this? How do you convince them that this is a good idea for them?
Through a mixture of things. So one would be the sort of phase out. In essence, it's a sort of a hard line we're driving here. It's either after 12 months you buy the product or you miss out. And if you want to buy a Nidec's product, you're going to have to buy it with a sensor. So we anticipate that we will lose some customers. You can't convert everybody. It's not feasible. It's not possible. However, because we do offer them the ability to sort of dip their feet in the water, see what it's all about, we guarantee them 1 year of free service. It's also cheaper than the original motor. So through these means, we aim to convert them, but also simply the way we position it in their minds. The benefits are plentiful and can be seen, especially in economies of scale, especially in an industry like the airline. We keep coming to that because it's an industry which is all about the bottom line. And a plane that's sitting idle on the tarmac doesn't make money. Planes make money when they fly. And so it's in the best interest of an airline or of an OEM such as Boeing to maintain this sort of efficiency in their operation.
In addition to what Osman was talking about, right now OEMs have subsidiary MROs. And so currently they also capture a large portion of the service industry. What actually we're concerned about when we were doing this presentation is the independent MROs who don't have the proper resources, such as OEMs that provide their subsidiary MROs to capture the market in the service industry. And so that's actually the question that we addressed, and we actually considered just giving the technology to independent MROs to help sponsor MRO industry and to not let OEMs take over the complete service industry. But then we decided that we're going to just give both OEMs and MROs the same equal chance in having the empowering source of information that is going to be delivered through full-size technology.
And I think like Nidec from their side offered a good deal for the OEMs, and this is just one emerging trend of disruptive technologies. So if the OEM does not see the potential of this technology and they refuse to embed it in their supply chain, then we have other options that we are working with, and in the long term, those OEMs who are not working with us are going to be at a disadvantage.
Just to add on, so one of the challenges for OEM is that we provide our services to them. So if they're not taking it, what if the end users know about it? Because it is so efficient that they can track or monitoring how the motor is doing. So the end user, they would demand to the OEM. So let's say Air France would demand to Boeing to increase this kind of efficiency. So they would ultimately come to us, come to Nidec to buy the new technology because the demand from the end user customers.
If you were inventing this new technology and you weren't already in the industry and you were making this recommendation, would you make the same recommendation, or would you make a different recommendation based on the constraints you see with the Nidec's current supply chain and some of the things that are their current realities? A real disruptor to this space, what would you be recommending to that customer?
So to clarify your question, do you mean if I were the person inventing it, I'm just inventing the sensor?
If Google invented the sensor, and they just wanted to enter this space as a sensor, would you recommend a similar strategy, or would you make an adjustment to that strategy?
It's an interesting question. It would have to be, I personally would adjust the strategy. Because Google would sort of come in the supply chain at several different angles. They wouldn't be really embedded in it. And
I think that just really makes it difficult if you're not involved in the supply chain now. It makes your position even more difficult, and you are at a more difficult position. And then you would be, if you want to take this strategy on, then you're gonna be more defensive, or like you're gonna take it at a slower pace, or a more gradual approach. But in this case, we recommend, like, Nidec has the upper hand in the supply chain, and they already have the connections, the relationships.
Yeah,
So
and again, I'm not looking for a different answer. I was just trying to get a gauge on your disruption comment early on. And if you're really being disruptive, are you feeling like you're hedging that disruption with your recommendation, or do you feel like you really are being disruptive with your recommendation?
I would say so, absolutely. And like Mohammed said, it's really about the relationships here. Nidec has excellent relationships with their partners and vice versa. So their ability to disrupt the market is great, only because they have a reputation within the industry. I mean, Google's well known all across the world, but it's like Amazon getting into the food industry. You know, there's sort of a resistance there, but it's going to happen whether you like it or not, because what they are providing is something so disruptive. So ultimately, over the course of time, disruption will end up taking over, but initially Nidec will have more, for sure, will cause more of an impact.
In addition to that, I think one of the main things that we focused on too was the loss of the human element that would happen if Google suddenly decided to sell sensors. The reason why we're doing this is because we're not decreasing the human element. The service industry will still be able to provide the same repairman service and just a more efficient repairman service, rather than the end user just having a sensor and going to a website and seeing what's wrong with their motor. They would still have someone, like Osama was a repair person. I would still go to Osama to get my motor repaired, to see what was wrong with my motor, and have him be a super pleasant person to talk to, rather than just going on a website and saying, oh yeah, my motor's temperature's up, I can fix it on my own now. Like, it still takes in that human element that people still do care about. I think that's the reason why there's still such a resistance to like smart technology, to like new disruptive technology at this moment, is because like what happens if computers take over all the service industries? We're facing nobody, and that just increases a lot of different problems. We're humans. Like, the whole point is that we're connected to one another. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.